Today I want to talk about a somewhat dated concept called sample chains. On the Octatrack, we called them octachains. And there's even an app called Octachainer that you can get to chain samples together. So a sample chain is a chain of samples that are evenly spaced out between each other. If we had a sample on trigger 1, the next sample would be on trigger 5, and the next sample would be on trigger 9, and the next one would be on 13. They'd be evenly spaced out, and we want the tail of the sample to end before the next sample so that the sample doesn't get chopped off. So that's what a sample chain is, and when you slice a sample chain across a quantized grid, like in the slice machine, or now called grid machine in Digitakt 2, we could actually modulate the different slice positions and have different samples on each one of those positions. So each spot on your sequencer will occupy a different sample as the LFO changes that sample slot. This is a cool way to generate random sequences, random melodies, random ideas, or just do weird stuff. It's a lot of fun. So we're starting off with a completely blank project here on Digitakt 2, and we're going to create a sample chain from scratch, and we're going to go through this process of modulating them and just kind of see what happens in the end. First thing we want to do is change the length of our tracks. So we're going to make a shorter sample chain. If you want to make a really long, huge sample chain, you totally can do that because Digitakt 2 can sample for a lot longer than Digitakt 1, and long sample times really help with sample chaining. That's why the Octatrack is exceptional at sample chains, because it can load up these enormous samples, which you can load up on Digitakt 2. It can load up really long samples. In fact, on Digitakt 1, you could load up huge monophonic samples. Maximum sample time of 30 seconds. So Digitakt 2 can do a similar thing as well. Not that that's that relevant, we're just talking at this point. So let's go through the process. So let's change our track scale quick. So function page to go into our track scaling. We're going to go function yes to change the track scaling so that we have independent track scaling per all 16 tracks, which is wild. We have so many tracks now. And let's just do 4 bars, just to make it easy on me so I can just show you this experiment. So we'll go function. I'll turn the H encoder so that it moves in quantized groups of 16. It's just a fast way to get around when you're moving the encoders. Holding function is always a shortcut to doing that a little bit faster. You can also go function up and down, and that'll do the same thing. And we actually want to just hit page until it says 6464, and we've matched our master with the length of our track, and now we're ready to go into the next phase. So we're just going to do this on a singular track, and then we'll sample that track. We'll resample that track. We're just going to hit this little music icon here, and we're going to go into our preset pool. We want to go down to manage, hit yes, and here we're going to audition some sounds. So we can either stick to percussion, which will have shorter sounds, which is actually going to make it easier for us to sample chain, or we could do all melody. Let's just do both, just for fun. So we're just going to find some sounds. I'm just going to find short sounds. That's the idea here for this particular tutorial. You can make your track scale a lot longer and then do longer samples, but you have to think like these samples, you need to give them enough time so that the tails last. You can also change the speed of your track so that, the scale of the track goes for a lot longer. Then you also need to up your master length as well to match the speed of the track. But we'll keep things kind of short, and we'll keep the samples kind of short. So back in here, go to manage, let's audition some sounds. Like this tick will work. We'll just hit a checkbox there, get this hat there. Okay, so I've picked out just a massive amount of presets. I probably cut to forward in time here so you didn't have to watch me go through that process. A lot of them had a lot of delay on them. It's fine. We can do whatever we want. I mean, it's music, right? There's no rules here, but I think it makes sense to not have the sounds be processed yet and have that be something that you do afterwards, at least with like long delays. And we don't want the sounds to carry on into the next sample in our chain. These are all just stock presets, none of the stuff that I've made personally on the Digitakt DX. So you could totally do all of this yourself. We're going to hit the left arrow and we're going to say add to preset pool. So I'm copying over several presets over to the preset pool, which means that I can now select them anytime. I can either put them down like this and just hold this encoder and bring up the preset pool. You can see all the presets that I've added, quite a few. There's another option, which is really unique to Digitakt 2, the new preset keyboard, which is very similar to slots mode on the Octatrack, but it's playing the presets, which is awesome. So to get into this mode, we're going to go function down and select preset pool. And now this is going to be all the different presets that I had selected from my preset bank. And I can press the right and left arrow to move through the different presets. So here's another page. Now that we understand preset keyboard, we want to talk about step record jump. This is something I've talked about in the infinite random melody generator video, which totally applies to your Digitakt 2. In fact, it's even better here. Let's go over to step record jump mode. This is record, stop, stop. This takes us into step record jump mode, and step record jump mode will jump two different spaces on the keyboard based on your trig length. I have the trig length set at 1/4, which means it's going to jump 4 steps every time I put a note down. So it'll land on 1, 5, 9, and 13, which is exactly what I want to do. So I just hold the function button while in step edit mode, and I can just run across these presets from the preset pool keyboard. And now I have a sequence made this way. Cool, right? But now what we want to do is resample this track, and then we're going to put it into the grid machine. We want to make sure it's set at 64 steps, and we want our selection to be the track that we're using for our source. That would be track 11, because that's the track that I'm on right now. We've got it already set up. We could arm it with the threshold, which is the H encoder, and then just hit play. All right, so let's save it, and we'll call it chain 1. I'm going to assign it to track 1. Now I'm going to mute 11, go over to track 1. Now I've got that sample loaded on track 1. Let's go back into our regular keyboard mode. There's our sample. We could actually give it a little bit of overdrive. That's better. I also want to just make it so that it just cuts it off right at the end. So we want our amplitude envelope to just be basically a sustain or just a hold. Just like that. Now we're going to go function source, and we're going to change this to a grid machine, and head over here and change the grid to match the sample amount, which is 16 samples. And now we have this. If I go like this and just put down a bunch of steps, I can actually change the slice position, and it's exactly where those samples were in the chain. If I want, I can go into my modifier and select the sample slice select right here, trigger, random, set the trigs to be a little bit longer. Now this sounds kind of goofy, so let's see what happens when we start adding more triggers to it. And maybe we could even turn the tempo up. Let's add even more triggers. All right, now let's put like a drum beat behind it. Now imagine that just had notes from a scale. That's something you can do on here. In fact, it's something you can do rather easily. If we choose a scale, function keyboard, and change it from chromatic to like Dorian, for instance, let's bring this down to G minor. When you're in your keyboard scale, if we push down on the trigger and push down on the encoder, it will only let us select notes from a scale. So if we choose a scale, this just jumps 2 notes in the scale, which is really cool. So we could actually have all these notes be assigned to random notes in our scale specifically. Let's see how this sounds. Resample it if we wanted, throw a comb filter on it. That could be pretty cool. My name is Matthew, aka EZBOT. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial on the Digitakt 2 and this little musical experiment, and maybe you'll even try this on your Digitakt 2. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and do all that stuff. It's really helpful, motivates me to continue to make hopefully thought-provoking content for you to enjoy and explore. I'll see you next time.